So this is from last class. This is from lesson 8, and most of you have already done this problem. So again, just watch for a second here. When we have two equations that are set up with the same format and they're stacked and everything matches, we can just add them together. In this case, if I were to add the negative 2x and the 2x, they would cancel out, right? Because negative 2x plus 2x is 0. If I were to add these up, they do not cancel. Negative 3y plus 7y is 4y. And if I were to add these up over here, 1 plus 11, that's going to give me 12. So the first step is called the elimination step because either the x's or the y's are going to eliminate. And then from here, we can solve this nice simple little equation. I divide on both sides by 4. We get y equals 3. We still got to find x. So to finish this up, I'd go back to one of the two original equations. I'm going to choose the second one. 2x plus 7y equals 11. I'd plug the 3 in for y. And I'd solve that equation. 2x plus 21 equals 11. Minus 21 on both sides. Again, don't try and copy this down. Just watch because I'm going really fast here. 2x equals, that's negative 10, and then divide by 2 on both sides, and we got x equals negative 5. So once you get really confident with this, you're going to be able to go that fast. But I just want to make sure that we've seen one and that we were confident with this first step. Are you guys feeling good about the first step, that elimination step? So that's what we're going to change on you today, okay? And this happens in education all the time. We get you comfortable with one thing, and then we're going to push you a little bit more challenging. So I'm going to flip the page now, if you guys could as well. Let's go on to lesson 8. 9, thank you. I keep getting that mixed up today. Lesson 9. And this is also elimination, but you're going to notice something different about this first example from what we did last time. Now, don't start writing it down because we're going to have to do a little bit of something different on this. But what is different about this first equation than the one that I just did a second ago? What would happen if I were to add those two equations together? Would the x's or the y's eliminate? Neither of them would. So this is not going to work the way that we did last Thursday, okay? So, but that's okay, because I got a little trick I'm going to show you, and we're going to make it work. It's going to be awesome, okay? So we just have one more level to do on top of what we did last time. So I want you to look at the x's and the y's. Notice on the x's, they are not the same number, but there is one that's positive and one that's negative, and that's good. The y's, they're not the same number, and nothing's negative here. So I want you to think to yourself, look at these x's right here. Is there anything I could do to a 6x to turn it into a 12x? We could multiply it by 2, couldn't we? And then these two would match. Do you see why I was thinking about turning this 6x into a 12x? Because if this 6x were a 12x, then I could eliminate, right? Well, it turns out not only can you add the two equations together, but there's another rule that says that you can take one equation and multiply the entire equation by any number you want to. And we just had a suggestion a moment ago. If we wanted to make this 6x match the negative 12x underneath it, that we should multiply it by 2. So I'm going to put a 2 out here. And I'm going to draw an arrow. And I am going to write down both of these equations again. Now, this 2 multiplies by everything in the equation. That's how the parentheses there are reminding me, not just the stuff on the left-hand side, but also the right-hand side. So I got 2 times 6x is 12x plus 2 times 6y is, well, 12y equals, and 2 times negative 12 is negative 24. And I will also copy the bottom equation over, but we didn't change it at all. So I'm just copying it directly as it says. So negative 12x plus 5y equals negative 27. What do you notice about those two equations now? Are we set up for elimination at this point? if I were to add them together, would the x's or the y's eliminate? Which one? The x's are going to eliminate, right? Because I got the same number, one's positive and one's negative. So let's do it. Let's add them together. So this now becomes just like what we did last class, right? So 12x and negative 12x are going to cancel. 12y plus 5y is 17y. And negative 24 and negative 27 is going to be negative, I want to say 51. Does that sound right? 51. Okay, we can solve that. I'm hoping 51 divides by 17, does it? Is it 3? Oh, nice. Okay. Dividing by 17 on both sides to get the y by itself. And we've got y equals, and that would be positive 3 or negative 3? Negative 3. Question. What a great question. That was going to be my question. So thank you. I'll just go ahead and repeat it because you stated it perfectly. Because so your question is about solving for x, right? We know we have to solve for x next. So the question was, are we going to put this negative 3 into one of these original equations, or are we going to put it into this equation right here? And the answer is any of them are fine. Okay, so you've really got 3 different options. This one's the same as this. That's why I'm not saying 4 options, but you got 3 options. Personally, I usually try and go with one of the original ones in case I made a mistake over here. So I'm looking at these 2 original ones. We're going to solve for x. I think I would probably choose the first one. It looks a little bit easier. So I'm going to take the original first equation, which was 6x plus 6y equals negative 12. But I left the y out because we know what y is. Y is negative 3. And then we'll use that to solve for x, and then we'll have our final answer. So go ahead and do those last couple steps of algebra there. Negative 12 plus 18 is 6. Oh, I'm running out of space. All right, so I just want to remind you, because you guys were really, really good at what we did Thursday last week. This is the same thing as what we did Thursday with one more step. When we looked at the original problem, the x's and y's, nothing canceled. So the new step is you can take one equation or the other, or spoiler alert, you can actually do it to both equations, multiply by a number. And we decided in this set of equations that if we multiplied by 2, that would make a 12x and a negative 12x, so they would eliminate it. So that's what we chose. That's why we chose to multiply by 2 here. So I'd like you guys to look at this next set of equations. And focus on the x's at first. Can you think of a way to turn a 4x into a 5x by multiplying? You could do it, but you'd have to use fractions, wouldn't you? There's not a whole number that multiplies by 4 to turn it into a 5. Look at the y's though. 4 is smaller. Can you think of a way to multiply a 4 to turn it into an 8? Well, that would be easy, wouldn't it? What would I want to multiply this 4y to turn it into an 8y? I want to multiply it by 2. So this time I'm actually going to multiply the bottom equation, and I'm going to multiply it by 2. Or wait, though, that's not going to give me what I want, is it? Yes. Why do I want to multiply it by a -2? So because we want them to cancel. If this is a positive 8y, then I want a negative 8y down here, right? I'm thinking a step ahead because I want them to cancel. So if we got a positive, we want a negative. So that's why I'm multiplying by -2 so that we can make them cancel. So let's go ahead and copy these equations down. I'm going to put them right down below here. So my top equation is not changing. It's still 4x plus 8y equals -16. And my bottom equation now, when I write this down, don't just copy my work because I'm telling you right now, I'm going to make the classic mistake. Okay. So this is what I see a lot of students do. So -2 times 5x is -10x. -2 times 4y is -8y. And that's a 4 over there. There is something wrong with that second equation that I just wrote. Can you guys see my mistake? What is my mistake? I did. I multiplied 5 times -2 here, and I multiplied 4 times -2 here. I got to multiply everything by -2. I did not multiply the 4 by -2, did I? That is such an easy mistake. I have made it hundreds of times. In fact, I've made that mistake so much that I'm always looking out for it. I always double check to make sure I multiply everything. So that should be -2 times 4. That should be a -8. Agreed? So please learn from that mistake. You're probably going to catch yourself making it once or twice. Well, once you've made that mistake a couple times, hopefully you'll start looking for it. All right, so we can go ahead and add those equations together, and what we're going to see is the y's are going to cancel. 8y and -8y are going to cancel. Let's see what else we have though. We've got 4x minus 10x. That's -6x. And I've got -16 minus 8. That's -24. So -6x equals -24. We know how to solve that. How am I going to get rid of that -6 on the x? Divide it. Yep, divide on both sides by -6. And we will get x equals 24 divided by 6. I want to say that's 4. Does that sound right? And it would be positive because it's a negative over a negative. So x equals 4 for my final answer. Well, half of my final answer, right? I still need to find my y value. Okay. Y value. Look at those two original equations. Which one looks friendlier to you? The first one or the second one? Top one? You like the top one? Okay, I'll go top one this time. Am I leaving out my x or my y? I've got a value for x, so I'll go ahead and leave out my x when I write this down. So 4x plus 8y equals -16. And I left out my x there because x is equal to 4. 4 times 4 is 16. And then we'll solve this to get y by itself. So -16 both sides. And then divide by 8 on both sides. Okay, so this is the real deal elimination, which I showed you on Thursday, was just to kind of get you used to the idea that you could add the two equations together. Usually you can't just do that from your first step though. Usually you're going to have to do a little bit of work to get it set up so that something is going to eliminate. So what we've introduced today is the idea that if you don't have anything that's going to cancel out from your original equations, that's okay. Look at your x's and look at your y's and see if there's something that you could easily multiply to make it match. And don't forget, they can't just match. Ultimately, you want to have, in this case, we ended up with a y. We had a positive 8y and a negative 8y. You always have to have one positive and one negative. So not when you think about multiplying, you might need to multiply by a negative number to make that happen. All right, so let's look through really quickly. You're going to do 3 and 4 on your own here in a moment. But look at number 3 and you tell me, with these x's, can you think of an easy way to make the x's match? We could make this, you're saying multiply by 2. I guess you're thinking of taking this 3y and turning it into a 6y. Would that work? Totally would work. Look at the y's. Could you make the y's match? This is a 1y. Could you turn that negative 1y into a positive 3y? What would you multiply this negative 1y by to turn it into a positive 3y? You could multiply by a negative 3. So we've got a couple options in this one. Either we could multiply by 2 to get the x's to match up, or we could multiply the top one by 3 to get the y's to match up. You don't want to do both of them. Actually, you might want to do both of them. But choose whichever one looks better to you. I would probably do it by 2 on the top and get the x's to cancel. Look at number 4. Do you think it's going to be easier to get the x's or the y's to match up in this case? X's, you think? You think you can make this negative 1x into a positive 2x? That would be pretty easy. What would you multiply this negative 1x by to turn it into a positive 2? Negative 2? You think that's going to be easier than trying to make a 4 into a negative 10? I agree, because we need a fraction to do that. So think about what's going to be easier. Sometimes there's one possibility and sometimes there's two. What I'd like you guys to do right now is work and finish problems 3, 4, 5, and 6. For those who are feeling very confident, after you get done with number 4, if you get number 4 correct, and I'm going to put the answers up on the screen here in a second, and you're feeling confident, I would encourage you to skip 5 and 6 and try 7 and 8 instead. 7 and 8 are a little bit more challenging. These are kind of more at an Algebra 2 level. Get my attention. I'd be happy to give you a hint on 7 and 8. All right. But if you're not feeling super confident after number 3, then just stick to 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not going to test you over problems like 7 and 8 just yet. All right, I'll write answers up here so that you all can check as you go. I have the magical cheat button here. Okay, answers are up on the screen. Please check as you go. Ask me questions as I'm coming around. Also, if you had questions over the homework that was due today, I'd be happy to answer those as I'm coming around too.